Let's be honest, gimbals are amazing tools for videographers, whether you're capturing cinematic shots, stabilizing handheld footage, or just trying to get that smooth movement that elevates your video. But here's the question a lot of people are asking: how often do you really need to upgrade your gimbal? Today, we're going to dive into that topic and more specifically, take a look at the RS3 from DJI to help you figure out if upgrading your gimbal is worth it or if your current one is still up to its task. Alright, let's get straight into it. Gimbals, especially top-tier models like the DJI RS3, offer incredible stability and a lot of cool features for your videos. But technology is constantly evolving and it can be tempting to upgrade every time a new model drops. So how do you decide when or if it's time for an upgrade? There are three key factors you need to consider when thinking about upgrading your gimbal. One is its performance, two is the feature updates, and three, compatibility. So let's break those down. Number one, performance. Is your current gimbal holding you back? The first and most obvious factor is performance. Is your current gimbal still delivering smooth, stable shots? For most people, gimbals like the DJI RS3 already provide exceptional performance out of the box. So unless you're experiencing serious issues like inconsistent stabilization, motor failures, or weight imbalance, you probably don't need an upgrade. A gimbal like the RS3 has powerful motors that can handle heavier cameras and lenses. So if your gear setup hasn't significantly changed, the RS3 will likely serve you well for years. But if you started using bulkier equipment like a heavier camera body or longer lenses, you might feel the need to upgrade to a newer model with stronger motors or better weight capacity. In short, if your current gimbal is still stabilizing your footage and handling your rig without any issues, upgrading for performance alone might not be necessary. Number two, feature updates. Do you need the latest tech? Next up, let's talk about features. Every time a new gimbal comes out, it seems to have some flashy new features that make you wonder, do I really need that? With the RS3, for example, we got some cool improvements over the previous models. One of the standout features of the RS3 is its auto-locking access, which means the gimbal automatically locks its motors when powered down, making setup much faster and protecting the gimbal when it's not in use. That's a big time saver, especially if you're constantly on the go. Another thing is the improved battery life and quicker charging. The RS3 gives you 12 hours of runtime and charges significantly faster than older models. This is something you might want to consider if you're constantly doing long shoots or remote projects where charging frequently is inconvenient. But here's the thing, features like these are great, but they're not must-haves for everyone. If you're a casual or semi-professional videographer, features like auto-locking or quick charging might not make a huge difference in your day-to-day shooting. On the other hand, if you're a professional who is looking for every possible efficiency upgrade, these upgrades might be worth it. So the key question here is, are the new features solving a problem you currently have? If not, your current gimbal is probably just fine. Number three, compatibility. Is your gimbal keeping up with your gear? One of the less obvious but equally important factors is compatibility with your other gear. Cameras and lenses are evolving all the time, and newer gimbals often come with better capability for the latest gear. The RS3, for example, supports more advanced camera controls, which means you can do things like start, stop recording, change settings, and even focus or zoom straight from the gimbal handle without touching your camera. If you're using an older gimbal, you might find that it doesn't support the latest camera models or doesn't allow you to use certain features, like focus pulling or wireless monitoring. In this case, upgrading to a gimbal like the RS3 might be worth it just to streamline your workflow and take advantage of your camera's full capabilities. That said, if you're using a camera that's a couple of years old and you're not missing out on any of the must-have controls, your current gimbal will likely continue to do the job just fine. Number 4, the cost-benefit analysis. When does upgrading make sense? Let's talk about the elephant in the room, cost. Gimbals aren't cheap, and upgrading isn't always going to be a financially sound decision. For instance, the RS3 costs around $550, which is a significant investment, especially if you're just starting out. Before dropping cash on an upgrade, ask yourself, is your current gimbal severely limiting your ability to shoot the kind of content you want? If the answer to that question is no, sticking with what you might already have is the best move. There's also the depreciation factor. Gimbals don't hold their value forever, so upgrading frequently could mean sinking money into gear that you may not fully utilize before the next model comes out. On the flip side, if you're running a professional video production business and those time-saving features or performance upgrades will directly impact your workflow and profit margins, then an upgrade might pay for itself. A great time to consider upgrading is when you're making a major change in your kit, like switching to a much heavier camera or investing in new production tools. If your current gimbal is struggling to keep up, that's when it's time to look at newer models like the RS3 or even RS4 that's out now. Number 5, how long should a gimbal last? Here's the big question. How long should a gimbal last? With proper care, a high-quality gimbal like the DJI RS3 can easily last you several years. Things like keeping it clean, making sure it's stored properly, and not overloading it with too much weight can extend its lifespan. Plus, most gimbals can be recalibrated or updated with new firmware to stay relevant even as technology evolves. That said, there will come a point when your gimbal is simply outdated. It might start to struggle with newer, heavier equipment, or it may not support the features you need for more complex shoots. But for most users, that's not going to happen for at least 3 to 5 years. So, how often do you really need to upgrade your gimbal? The answer depends on your needs as a videographer. If your current gimbal is still giving you smooth, reliable shots and you're not missing out on the essential features, there's probably no rush to upgrade. But if you find yourself dealing with performance issues, missing out on the latest camera compatibility, or needing more advanced features to improve your workflow, then it might be worth considering. In the case of the DJI RS3, the upgrades are definitely worth it if you're a pro who needs that extra efficiency and control. But if you're a casual or hobbyist videographer, you might be better off sticking with your current gimbal until you start feeling those limitations. For example, in my case, before the DJI RS3, I used to use the Zhiyun Crane 2, and that was with me for about 2 to 3 years. But when DJI RS3 came out, I saw the upgrades were substantially much better than the Zhiyun Crane 2. And I also saw that a lot of the features that are on the DJI RS3 were not coming out on the Zhiyun family. So, number 1, I jumped ship, and number 2, I went and bought the DJI RS3. And it's been with me for about 2 years now, and I have no reason whatsoever to upgrade to the RS4 or any other gimbal. So, what about you? Are you thinking of upgrading your gimbal? Let me know in the comments below, and if you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on more gear reviews and videography tips just like this one. See you guys in the next one.